Hello to our New Zealand listeners. Powrup is coming to a city near you. If you're in Wellington, Christchurch or Auckland, we've specially designed a 4-week program to help you bust through those beliefs and habits that are holding you back. Come and join some of our very first leadership cohorts in June and July. We even have an email template to help you get professional development budget. So reach out at hello@powrup.com and we look forward to meeting you in person. Welcome to Powrup, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts Nat and Kristen as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Hello, thanks for listening. Today we're chatting about rediscovering your purpose, getting to know and remind yourself why you get out of bed in the first place. And this directly supports our mission to give you the tools and the confidence to build a career on your terms.
Did you find it hard to get out of bed this morning?
No, I'm loving Powrup stuff, even though it was a long weekend and Mondays are, if you're human, you're not loving Mondays.
I do like Mondays sometimes.
But you're not human.
Because I'm a robot. But after this weekend, I was up in New Plymouth and it was lovely. And then it was like coming back to normal life. And my flight got cancelled yesterday. And so the day got kind of derailed. So waking up felt like messy on a Monday. I don't like messy on a Monday.
Okay, well, forget Monday then. At minimum, Tuesday through Friday, you should feel relatively positive about what you're doing in life and that whatever you're doing is aligning with kind of what you should be doing. So that's what we're going to talk a bit about today.
Do you believe, what is it they say? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Do you believe stuff like that?
It feels a little bit cheesy, even though I learned as part of the newsletter research that it's actually over 2,000 years old, that saying.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I wonder what they were working on.
Confucius. It's a Chinese teacher and a teacher and a poet and a philosopher. And he came up with that in 500 BCE.
I wonder what work looked like when he was talking about that.
Well, I don't know. He was into painting and the arts and philosophy, and he was the meaning of life. And this is when you had a lot of time and you didn't have doom scrolling.
So he didn't really work. Let's put it that way. But I do like that saying. I think for me, it's not that you don't work a day in your life, but the hard work becomes easier.
Yeah.
Because when you're working on really hard, mundane stuff or it's sort of stressful or there's a lot of pressure, if you remember your purpose, it kind of gives you a reason for doing it. And it sort of helps ease the pain of the hard times.
It goes from hard to challenging. And I think most people enjoy a challenge.
Yes.
Or you get bored. But people hate the struggle and hard. So maybe aligning with your purpose, finding your purpose, you can enjoy the challenge of life.
Yeah, and you know what you're working towards, which always makes life easier when you have to sort of sacrifice or compromise. Although I don't know, we might talk about it a bit today about compromising on your values and where values fit in your purpose.
Yeah, well, that's part of there's 3 things we're going to dig into. The first is what guides you, and that's where values and strengths and skills will come in. Who do you do it for is the second part of defining and rediscovering your purpose. And the third is what changes as a result.
And I think for anyone who's listening now thinking, oh no, I have no purpose, or is this a bit woo-woo? Well, one of the things we were just discussing before is your purpose doesn't have to be life-changing or world-changing. It's about finding meaning. I always say meaning when I talk about purpose. It's finding the thing that the why, the thing you can cling to as to why you're even doing this. And if you don't know why you're doing it, then it is actually probably worth sitting down and thinking through why you're getting out of bed to actually turn up at the office every day.
This week's newsletter came out of our last week's newsletter, where it is about people feeling unsupported at work. And what we learned from that is, coming out of a pandemic and feeling unrecognized and undervalued is a huge problem and leads to burnout. So looking at that, I thought, well, what if we looked at resilience and how to build resilience? And the key thing that came up over and over and over again on this research I was doing about resilience was purpose. And if you have a clear purpose, and it can change, like anything is flexible, and it can change with, our career stage, it can change with our life stage. But if you have one and you hold on to it, you can overcome setbacks and failures and dust yourself off or look for new opportunities with purpose. It gives us a real sense of direction and clarity.
I love it. And also I think I've read a lot of stuff on LinkedIn recently about the value of quitting, and how, the traditional saying of don't be a quitter is actually completely incorrect. And having a purpose helps you know when to quit when things aren't working for you as well. And I think coming out of COVID, to your point, it's even more important now than ever to have a purpose, because I think for the last 3 years, our communal purpose was survival. It was, how do we, and I don't mean that necessarily in life or death, but how do we survive financially? How do we get through the day? How do we change plans for the 10th time? All that sort of stuff. But we're coming out of that now. And I think what we're all finding is this almost united lack of purpose, because we've been in this intense chaos for so long. And now it's time to come up for air and go, right, let's reset. And what are we individually looking to achieve now? Because we can move away from this communal goal of getting through back to thinking ahead of what we want to achieve and what we want to add to the world.
So let's go into the first of the three, which is what guides you. And so we're going to go through a 3-step process about rediscovering purpose. And the first is what guides you. And there's a couple elements under this one. The first is one that you love, Nat, and that guides you, which is...
Is that your core values?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is core values.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's one of those odd things about life is that you are born by a matter of random luck, really. And I was very fortunate to be born in the life that I was born into. So understanding that privilege really helped me very early on think, how do I leave the world slightly better off than what I found it? And how, at minimum, how do I not cause more harm? And how do I live in a way that I recognize what head start I got? So that was something that I feel like I learned very, very early on, that I think I probably evolved a bit, but has really guided all my decisions since then.
So if you were to boil that down to a couple values, what would that look like?
One is probably add more value than you take away, or give more than you receive, or generosity is probably a value. And fun is a huge value of mine. I think fun and enjoyment. For a long time, I said the meaning of my life was to have fun, because what else, if you can have a great life, how great. So I think fun, but also leaving the world a little bit better off and making a difference that, and I know that sounds very cliched, but making a difference that whether it's the environment or people, that kind of means that you've tread a bit lightly on the planet, or that you've helped with something, I think is the least cliched way I can say that is something that's really important to me.
Great.
What about you?
Well, I've got 3 that I have used from my early 20s and early in career until now, but then I've added another one since I got into the startup space, I think. So the first 3 that I recognized I needed as I navigated my career and got in and out of workplaces and sectors as a result was, the first was autonomy. That was really important to me. Having someone that was micromanaging, or not having the freedom to flex and really own something. I wanted to have the autonomy to own something, and the responsibility that came along with that, to be accountable to something. Autonomy was number 1. The ability to make an impact, which is the same as yours, give more than you take. So I wanted to be able to tie my contribution to meaningful impact in any type of organization. And the third was, and probably still valuable today actually, is personal growth and challenge. It's really important for me to continue to feel stretched and challenged and learn and that kind of thing.
I'm stealing some of yours.
Okay. And those guided me, and I knew when I woke up, if one of them wasn't being fulfilled, which is, let's say, autonomy, for example, I knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
And but one that since getting into the startup space and I'm stealing one of yours, is making the world a better place. And I think when you go into corporates, I can check all those 3 values, by the way, in a corporate. So I probably would be fine in a corporate if those 3 boxes were checked. However, I think it's harder to make an impact on a world when you become a smaller and smaller cog, possibly. Corporates
Debatable.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you can have so much more, you can be a smaller part of a much bigger impact.
You're right. You're right.
I've often thought that about politics and Yeah, large banks where actually the smallest change you make to them, it may feel frustrating. And, we know a bunch of people who work for government agencies and it can be so frustrating, but the smallest change there has the ramifications can be so much bigger. So I think I could totally find that.
Yeah, it might be the tech stuff that I always thought. Like imagine, and for Powrup, for example, we could continue to run manual power sessions and touch and it have an impact on 16 to 20 women per power session cohort, or which our intention is to build a technology product where we can embrace and support and have 1 million women take up more space. And so I think maybe that's where I went to that really like broad and unfair generalization, because you're right, the biggest companies in the world are currently having the biggest impact.
Well, and also I think, and this is purely because I think part of this purpose thing we're talking about is that it's actually very flexible, and I think when we talk about purpose, it can really easily feel not judgmental, but like my purpose is more important than your purpose, or unless you're changing the world, you don't really have a purpose. And I used to work for a loyalty program, and I found huge purpose in that because it was about helping small business owners figure out how to grow their businesses, because they could use this program from a consumer point of view, how people could save a bit of money and learn how to game the loyalty system and end up with a little bit of delight in their day. So for me, that was the purpose, and it didn't matter that I played a really small part in that. The fact that organization was doing that, whether or not that was their purpose, I don't know. That was the purpose I found in it. The joy of purpose is actually we all get to set what we want to get out of it. You might be working for a company that you don't quite understand their purpose or align with it. You can find other purpose in there.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the core values. And those are your non-negotiables. So have a think about what some of your non-negotiables are and what it might make you move on from your organization or stay and add more value. And the other part of what guides you, in addition to core values, is identifying what you're good at. What do you love to do? And we've chatted about this before with the term superpower. And so this is a combination of your natural abilities, your strengths, or these learned things that you become really good at, your skills. And part of my second value, which was an ability to make an impact, I really wanted to move the needle and add value in an organization, is I had to be able to use my strengths and skills. Like if I was in the wrong role or doing something that I wasn't exceptionally good at, okay for personal growth, but that's not going to fit that second value. So
I love that.
Yeah, so I always kind of had to have a sense of treading in the areas where I had innate natural ability and doubled down on those.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think, again, extrapolating that out to anyone is if you're in a job where you don't feel like you're using your strengths, that is something that's kind of interesting to examine. How could you? Is there an opportunity to increase the amount you bring your strengths to the table? I learned this years ago at a leadership course, and we call them superpowers, they called them gifts. But it's not just the things you're good at, it's the things you're good at that you love. Those are your superpowers, because if you're anything like us, you can be good at a lot of things that no one else likes doing. And so you get thrown into the organizer role or the doer role. And that's great because you're good at it. But it's not great because it's not what you love to do all the time. So getting caught up in that trap, you sometimes end up working in non-strategic things, but also on stuff that you don't love. And life's too short to work on stuff you don't love. So how do you come up with your strengths?
I suppose I was in growth roles and product management type roles through my early career, so that I needed to be really good at growing things and understanding distribution to the market and understanding pricing and understanding how I was going to reach customers and how I was going to make them really happy, and so they were sticky. And so, but my strengths have had to change as I've kind of moved into more leadership roles and organizations. And so I took a test, and I also asked people what they felt my strengths were. And so a couple of the things that came back were storytelling came back. So I know that I can lead and inspire and motivate through stories. And so that is a strength of mine, which is really handy as a leader. The other thing that came back was delivery. I love to kind of deliver things at a leadership level. You're not as involved as you might be earlier in your career, but that was delivering. I love to do. Leading was another one that came up as part of the test, being able to rally a group of people around a vision and help organize them and getting them engaged in things that we do. So that those kind of were some of the things that came up. What about for you?
It. Well, I was just thinking on that delivery to enabler. There's almost a shift that a lot of us struggle with, that and I've seen this really great diagram once, but I can't remember it in detail, but you start out becoming a technical expert. And when you first start your career, the best thing you can do is just hone those technical skills, become really good at delivery or really good at coding or really good at design or writing or whatever those technical skills are. And then your next step up, you're doing a little bit less of that and a little bit more of enabling. So as you go up the ladder, your role in something like that Allbirds example changes from being the person on the ground project managing it, delivering it, which you're absolutely able to do, to actually not doing that at all and creating an environment where that's possible, making sure people have the resources they need, the time they need, making sure you're removing all those blockers. Because I remember that was a big thing you talked about a lot at Hatch, was that idea of your role as a leader often is just removing the blockers in the path of the people
in order to deliver, because I love delivering.
which is quite different from doing the doing.
So
and I
true.
think it makes you a better leader when you know the detail of the stuff that you're leading.
Yeah, and I really struggle now to say what are my skills for that very reason. As you become a leader, you can do lots and lots of different things, but you lean more on your strengths as a leader than your skills.
Yeah, I agree.
And that you just described that, and that's it. Like,
yeah,
I'm
I think
like,
it is that. And I've started to say on my strengths, I've actually stopped removing delivery from it because I think it's something that women get lumped with. We're good deliverers. Women are exceptional deliverers. Yeah. And I can do it, and I've loved doing it in the past. I've done so much of it that I actually don't want to be known for that anymore. I'm quite happy to, I can get anything done if I want to, but that's not something that I would consider my superpower anymore, because it's not something that I love as much. I love seeing things delivered, but I kind of feel like that's the next gang now, is able to do that. We obviously still have to do that, but I think that's a great example of where strengths and superpowers can disconnect, because you can have a really strong strength but doesn't need to keep it as a superpower. One of my strengths, well, my superpowers that I like the most is almost that lateral thinking, that being presented with a problem and being able to see multiple paths through and then being able to break them down to the smallest step and iterate on that. And I think that's something that I've noticed is really hard, and I didn't used to realize that was really hard, but it's something that I can bring to the table that I love grappling with that. I think time management, and it's like a little, some way it's a flippant skill, but again, it's something that I've noticed is one of the things that unless you have it, you really struggle. Everything else flows from that, because when you nail time management, you free up time to do the important stuff. So those are two superpowers that I really feel like I've honed and spend. And still to this day, I spend a lot of time on time management. Like, current hobby is trying to figure out how we're going to structure Powrsuit with meetings and organizing our time as we grow, because I just think it's just something that I love thinking about, and how can you do things smarter, and instead of throwing people at the problem, how could you do something quite differently? So I can tell you instantly when something aligns with my values or not. And I've turned down, I remember years ago, I got offered to work on Playboy, and at the time I was I think we both were very values driven, very know-it-all. We were in our 20s, and I was like, I will not compromise my values. Now I look back and I'm like, probably wasn't compromising my values, but I was always very clear, and to this day am, on, even if I don't have them jotted down in front of me, and I'm saying this for anyone listening who's like, oh my goodness, I'm falling behind, I don't have my values written down. As long as you have an idea of what feels good in your gut when you do it, and what feels like not quite right.
And I think you can say the same thing for strengths. They're kind of innate. You're probably using them. They might not be jotted down, but it is worthwhile just having a think about that as to what guides you, and maybe jotting a few ideas down initially, but you probably are gravitating towards them. You're probably circling in the right area.
And the only last advice on that is I would be very clear on what are your superpowers and what is your comfort zone, because it's very easy to fall into your comfort zone when it comes to your strengths. And part of leadership is always pushing yourself out, and that's what I really loved about what you just said, of you kind of are like, what skills do I have? Because you push yourself out of your comfort zone so much that the things you need to be successful are so vastly different from even probably a couple of years ago, which is super cool.
So the second step for redefining or rediscovering your purpose is, who do you do it for? And this is a really quick one. This is, who are the stakeholders or the customers? It could be you're doing it for the environment and making the world a better place. For Powrsuit, we're doing it for women so that they can take up more space. But it could also be, at various points in my career, Nat, I literally just had a really great stakeholder, like a manager that I wanted to deliver to, or I had a board I was responsible for. And so my goal was I was using my superpowers in order to deliver to those stakeholders. And that was great when I did a good job.
I love it. And in another case, it could be your team. You could have a great team that you are doing stuff so that your team's successful, or the organization you work for, especially again in those challenging times where you might be stuck doing stuff that you don't love. Like, who are you doing it for? Because that can, and we always used to joke at Hatch when we went through some really challenging times, or we had a particularly busy couple of weeks, and we're like, even the worst work is not bad when you're in it together and you're all kind of end up having a good time because you're sitting alongside people and you all agree on what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, and that was your value of fun. And part of the research I did this week was that the most successful people and the happiest people have a real outward focus when it comes to purpose, and they recognize who they're doing it for. And again, it doesn't have to be world changing. It could be your team, and you get up and you recognize right now your team needs you more than anything. And that's why you're getting up and using your superpowers and making them successful and use their superpowers.
Absolutely. And I think you see that a lot in emergency services. There's a lot of that teamwork around, we are each other's best friend right now, and I'm doing it. I'm getting out of bed for you. I think,
but can I just say they're saving the world too? So
they absolutely are. I mean, they've got a lot to fall back on when it comes to purpose. They cheated. They've got an easy purpose. But I think the other thing, just to throw back what you just said about it's good to do things for others. And I think that is actually apparently one of the best things you can do if you're feeling really down, is to do something generous for someone else. Yeah. But I would counter that with, sometimes the thing who you're doing it for could be yourself. And I think a lot of the time women can get very stretched between family, relationships, work, that we actually don't invest in ourselves, or we don't take time for ourselves. So I think if part of finding your purpose is recognizing your personal growth as a value, do that for yourself and be really proud that you're doing it for yourself. If you're taking a job purely, or a project to upskill yourself, and that's your purpose, part of your purpose for that job, go wild.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Good perspective. Good. Okay, so that was it. That should be quite an easy one, and it just takes a little bit of thought about part of your purpose. Who are you waking up for at the moment? And if it is yourself, that's fantastic. The final third step as part of this is what changes as a result. So either for yourself or for your customers, your stakeholders. So how are you making a change in their work lives, in their lives, what is changing?
I love this one. This is my favorite.
Yeah. Well, what do you think?
This is, well, I mean, in terms of this is how I've always thought about work, or anything I do, is what changes. Like, what am I getting out of bed for? And when I take into account my values, what am I changing? And I think, I mean, at Hatch, it was very easy. And we go back to that vision thing of, I literally could see every day different people whose lives were freer as a result. They could change their jobs. They felt more comfortable. They felt more confident. Like, great.
Yes.
That was from a customer point of view. From a team point of view, when we talk about who we were doing it for, we saw some incredible growth in the people we worked with, who had learnt new skills, who built resilience, who could go on and take over the world in all sorts of different ways. Huge amount of change as a result of what we chose to do there. And same with Powrup. I mean, we can both see a world in which there are more diverse leadership teams, and that women can succeed on their terms. Like, that's who we're doing this for.
Yeah.
And I love that.
I mean, I don't think there is anything better than getting an email from someone saying, I listened to this negotiation podcast and got a $30,000 raise. Yeah. Or you've made me more confident and ambitious, was one of the comments last week. I'm really pushing into new opportunities at work. So that is the ultimate, where you go, oh my goodness, we are waking up, we've got our values aligned, we have a sense of our strengths, we're able to use them every day, and we're doing it for these women. And then if their lives are changing, it's like we've won, which is fantastic. But there have been parts in my career where it's been smaller and maybe a bit more clinical. Again, for example, it could have been, my job was to make my manager's life easier. Like, they hired me to manage a certain part of their portfolio, or whatever that might have been, product portfolio. And so for me to succeed was so they succeeded. So, and that, I was okay with that, because that, again, I found real meaning and impact in that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think, I mean, and I'm the same. I've worked in a whole range of different organizations. And I think that idea of making someone else successful is is kind of part of finding your purpose, is really understanding. I mean, we work in these organizations, they have hierarchy. There is a way that you helping someone else actually achieves your ultimate outcome as well.
Yeah.
But I think every single job I've had, I have found purpose or an idea of, or a vision of, what is the thing that I want to change as a result. And often it is different from what the organization thinks. So I think there's and it could be coming in to solve conflict. It could be coming in because this project that seems really cool is a bit of a mess. And so changing as a result is it's going to be a nicer work environment for people. Like, that's purpose to me.
Great.
So,
and flip side is that you could actually, what changes as a result, you could adopt the purpose of your organization. You know, if you've got an organization that's working in climate change, if you've got an organization, a bank that's augmenting people's financial literacy, you can adopt that purpose and be really proud that you play that part in that purpose.
Absolutely.
I think that's okay as well.
I love that. And more and more, we were talking about before, more and more organizations are getting loud and proud about their purpose. Even I went to the zoo the other day in Auckland and they had their purpose written on a sign right at the front, and it was about conservation and bringing animals back from endangerment. And I just thought, walking into the zoo, I felt, even as a customer, I wanted to be part of that purpose. And I adopted that purpose very quickly.
Okay, that's great. You feel good about yourself. So we're going to end on quickly our elevator pitches, because when you've defined some of these things, it can help you with your elevator pitch. We've got an article in the resources that we've written about the elevator pitch, and you basically you've got an intro, you've got your one-liner about who you are, then you share your superpower. We've talked a bit about those. You share evidence of that, and then you might have an ask. And so evidence can also be where you insert your purpose. So I'm just going to give it a quick try, okay? Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Kristen. I am a startup founder and leader. I get out of bed to grow startups. Last year, we built and sold a company called Hatch after 4 years with 65 employees and hundreds of thousands of customers. Right now, we're looking to give women the tools and the confidence to take up space in the workplace. Do you want to try now?
Yeah, I like it. And I've tried to strip mine right back, because in the article you talked about, we covered a lot. And I wonder, when I introduce myself, I'm trying to think of one that I can use that's a real quick, like,
great,
I'm this person. But it's funny, because we've learned in the last week that your experience and track record is super important.
Yeah.
That is something that we've noticed people really fixate on. So I missed that out.
That's the evidence part.
It is part of the evidence.
So what's yours then?
And so finding the most powerful evidence, I haven't done that yet. Juno's wanting to come in. Juno the dog's coming to do hers. No, she's leaving now. Okay, I'm Nat. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm currently working on Powrup, which is a leadership platform for women. In the last 6 months, we've built an audience of over 4,000 women and launched our first paid pilot, which has sold out, and the first 2 sold out. We are currently looking for organizations who want to invest in their women and solve the engagement and diversity problems in their organization. And we are also looking to launch our first digital MVP.
My only challenge would be, you've put the what, but I would challenge you to go the purpose of Powrup.
Yeah.
Because you went leadership platform for women, but what if it was like, we help women, bleh?
Yes, I think I probably could add that. I was actually trying to show, and probably poorly, that you can rearrange that structure a bit and show, like, we are looking for organizations who want to solve this problem, by explaining that as a way to say what we're doing.
Yeah, I got it.
I've gone too meta.
No, I've got it. So I think this would be a more of a formal elevator pitch of what we've done.
What about, Kristen, if I said, we're at a party?
Yeah.
That's the music at the party.
Yeah.
And I walk up to you and I'm like, hey, I'm Nat. Can I chat to you for a minute? I have no friends here. So
yes.
Yeah. Oh, what do you do?
Are we practicing right now?
Yeah. Like, if you were doing it at a party, like, how would you
Yes.
change yours to be more informal?
Great.
Go with my role play.
Yeah, great. Oh, I'm Kristen. I'm a founder, and currently I'm working on something that's giving women the tools and the confidence to take up space in the workplace.
Love it. Yeah, and I think that's such a great example of how you can totally change them. You don't have to go through the whole lot, because what I would naturally do after that and be like, great, what have you done? And so you actually can roll out the rest of your elevator pitch without having to, like, do a whole spiel.
Exactly. That's
excellent
great.
example,
That's great.
Kristen.
Oh,
well done. Add that to your superpowers.
Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed that, and we'll have resources in the links to practice your elevator pitches. We'd love to hear from you. Take a minute to rediscover your purpose, because you will rediscover your resilience by doing so.
Give us a 5-star. If you're on the podcasting app right now, give us a 5-star. It's actually extremely helpful. You have no idea how helpful it is. It's one thing. If you like what you're listening to, give us a 5-star. We're trying to grow this movement. Also, while you're there, hit follow or subscribe or whatever it says on your platform. That would also help us immeasurably. We'd love to have all your friends join us. Don't be afraid to share.
Yeah, powersuit.com, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.